So today's a pretty good day. I published my book. Um, I took the red pill navigating the rabbit holes of a spiritual awakening. This book was a few years in the making, and when I first started writing it, it felt like a compulsion. Like something was both pushing me and pulling me at the same time to do it. And it felt more like it was something I was called to do, something I was supposed to do, rather than feeling any excitement of doing it. So it's kind of been one of those bittersweet things in my life over the last probably 3 years. And I wrote the majority of it in 4 months. That's how fast and furious it went. And there was a lot of research that went into it, things that just led me to one thing, to another thing, to another thing. Everything just piling on. My brain literally went through an entire rewiring process as I was going through it, as far as some of my core beliefs and, looking at things in a different view. And some of those were, evolution of our soul. What are we doing here? What are some of the bigger things we're looking at? Like, what are humans doing on this planet? Why are we here? How did we get here? There are a lot of things in our history across the planet that don't really jive. And I remember watching the movie series Divergent, and in the second book or second movie, right, when they realize that there's something beyond the wall, and then when they actually find it, only to find out that it's, it ends up being more advanced, and that they actually were an experiment, and they were the ones that were being watched. And their whole, perception shifted. Their whole sense of self shifted. Their sense of identity all came into question. Everything they've been taught, been structured to be, changed. And in many ways, that's exactly how this book was for me. And I think the biggest reason why I felt compelled to write this book was because in my awakening, I found so many other people going through the exact same thing I was going through, or had recently gone through the exact same thing I'd gone through, and had also come to the same conclusions. And it was at that point when I realized that I went, wait, something else is going on here, something bigger, How can all of these people be coming into this new way of understanding and new way of believing certain things as far as our earth history and what we're doing at a soul level, if there's not something more to it? And I think the biggest thing that I found in my awakening was a lot of frustration. Just frustration trying to navigate it, right? What ties into what and how, and, what ends up being a trap that's actually bullshit, within the information. And I found that there was no guide. There's no guide to an awakening. And that in itself was really frustrating because, part of it is you do shadow work, and it's like, well, what's shadow work? And then, you go down a lot of other little rabbit holes like star seeds and then, figuring out that, wait, star seeds ties into numerology and blueprints and soul contracts. And, then on top of that, that's all, tied into themes like reincarnation. And then, you land yourself in, with Michael Newton and, Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls books, as far as how he mapped out, and he was a psychologist, how he mapped out the space between when we die and then when we're reborn again. And then you also land into other books, such as Dolores Cannon and, her regression therapy of past lives, and so forth. And so there's all these things that really popped up, and trying to put them together was very confusing, and figuring out when you landed in a trap and got stuck. And I saw that there were so many other people that had gotten to the same space that I had, and they were having the same kind of questions and the same kind of frustrations, and they were mentally trying to figure it out. They were trying to get there. and some of them couldn't, or some of them just didn't know where to go, or didn't know, the next questions to ask, or who to believe on what topics, or where they could go find out more information about just different things. And the interesting thing that I found in this process was there were a lot of people that had come to all of the topics that I had gotten to, but then there were these kind of other groups of people who had only come upon one of the three planes, as I call them. One of them is the psychic plane, and everything that we're doing from an actual psychic level, a soul level, an energy concept level, consciousness, etc. Another happens to be the alien plane, as I call it, which is extraterrestrials and their influence into Earth events. And I'm not just talking about in the now, I'm talking about over time. And you have a whole chunk of people in the disclosure community, but the ET stuff is not separate. It's not actually separate from the rest of the stuff. And then you also have the third plane, which is the human plane, which is the actual day-to-day, right? I'm a human, I've got a consciousness, this is my avatar, and I'm interfacing with other consciousness in their avatars, and I'm having this tangible physical experience, as are they. And what are we actually doing? What are we accomplishing? What is the goal? And how does that kind of intertwine into the other planes and make sense of it? There was one book, in one book there was a story, I think it was one of Michael Newton's books, and one of the stories, he was talking about how there's different, different evolutions of souls, right? So different kind of levels of souls. And you have souls that might be considered like a sage, right? A really old soul. And a lot of the really old souls, really evolved souls, don't necessarily come down to Earth anymore, because Earth is a pretty hard place to be, first of all. And there's a lot of learning and lessons and stuff like that they don't need to learn because they've already learned them. And a lot of times they'll stay a little more in the ether, or they'll be in different planetary systems. But this one story happened to revolve around this woman who came to him, and they did hypnosis, and one of the things he found was that her soul was really old. But he was really surprised by her story, because this was a woman who was simply a waitress in a roadside truck stop, and had been for like 30 years. And he asked her, I don't understand. You're this really, old evolved soul. You could be doing so much more, blah, 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 for people, why are you working at a truck stop? This doesn't make sense. And what she said is that a lot of the old souls actually will implant themselves, not so much in like, city center kind of places, but smaller areas, to try to help those areas, grow and evolve. And part of what she felt her path was, and far as helping people, was simply her presence and her being would be positive enough that if she did something like worked at a roadside diner, that she could actually touch more people in a day than in a lot of other places that she could be, and a lot of other jobs that she could do. And how a lot of travelers, when they come through the truck stops, they're tired, they're weary. And, if she's somebody that can give them a smile and, impart a little happiness, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes in their day, right? That maybe that makes the difference between, somebody having a really bad day and somebody being able to get out of the funk that they're in. So it was really interesting to me that there are a lot of people who, their purpose is not some grand scheme. It's just all about being here, being present, staying in the moment. And, when you find these moments and you find these people, I think that's one of the amazing things that you kind of learn from and you grow from those people. And they don't have a lot of things that they're doing and a lot of, the successes that you otherwise would say, but just how they are spreads their energy to others, and how they are able to uplift other people's consciousness and their, vibrational frequency into a more positive state of mind simply by being who they are. And I think that is actually a really beautiful lesson. Some of us don't have grand plans on the planet, and that's okay. We don't need to. Some of us are only meant to impact people in the small area that we're meant to, and that's okay too. And other people are simply meant to learn their own experiences from, and that is okay too. And so when we look at all of these things combined, it's really amazing what we're doing at a soul level, from more of a ethereal plane, what we're doing from a human level, and then what ultimately we're doing on a much larger level, because anybody who's got a brain knows that Earth is not the only planet that has life on it, has advanced life. And I'm not talking about like amoebas and stuff. I'm talking about advanced life like humanoids or other humans. So anyway, it's been a really good day for me. I feel kind of like I birthed the baby here, because there were some points that I did not want to publish it for different reasons. There were topics in there that I was not excited to write about, but I knew that if I did not write about them, that it would be a disservice to the overall topic, and I knew that I would be intentionally omitting something that people would be finding out or diving into. So if anybody is interested, if you're currently in a spiritual awakening, or and dealing with shadow work, or trying to understand what are we doing on this planet as a species, then definitely take a look at my book. It's on Amazon. Once again, it's called I Took the Red Pill, Navigating the Rabbit Holes of a Spiritual Awakening by Palace. And otherwise, if you want to like this video or comment, always, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. Definitely subscribe to my channel, because I'll be doing a lot of different videos, whether it's spiritual stuff or empath stuff, or life coaching, especially like trauma survivor stuff. But all that stuff will be on my channel. Otherwise, have a great day, y'all.